Thank you. I'm going to give you some insights into my view on where we are with media marketing and technology at the moment with a spin of innovation. I'm going to talk about some of the work we're doing at Ketchum and some of the stuff that we're thinking about looking forward. My view is we get very excited in business about the white heat of technology. We get excited about the latest social network, the latest widget, the latest thing that Apple announced last night. But actually, innovation isn't about products. It's not about service. It's about how people, human beings, adopt these technologies to create value and make things better. And innovation doesn't happen 9 to 5, in my view, in offices. It happens at events like this, where we meet different people from different disciplines who do different jobs, and we spar off each other. It happens by people like myself working with universities to learn from the research that's going on and applying that in my practice and vice versa. It happens by walking in Northumberland and exploring scenery around me and thinking about things just in different ways. It happens when you bring cross-functional groups together to do things very, very differently. So that's my perspective on innovation, and where I start is with this slide from the United Nations, from the Millennium Goals for ICT. Because so much of my career, so much of our careers is reflected through the perspective of the internet and the growth of the internet. And I put this up because it shows what's happened in the last 15 years, 16 years, with people getting access to this incredible network that connects people around the world, allows them to create their own forms of media, to share, to communicate. But it also shows that there's still an awful long way to go. There's still more than 50% of the world's population haven't got access to the internet. If you want to talk about innovation, as those 4 billion people come online, that's going to be incredible. It's going to create incredible opportunity. Incredible opportunity as we look east, as we look to developing markets. And that, for me, is the real excitement that I see for the remainder of my career through to, in fact, I don't think I'm ever going to stop working. If you look at the data, all the data suggests, if you look at what Facebook's predicting with its internet.org project, if you look at what Google's predicting, they're suggesting that 4 billion people are going to come online by the end of 2020. That's actually looking at the latest data. That's probably quite conservative. And they reckon that by the end, both these projects, Facebook and Google and the UN and the the telecoms organizations in the US, reckon that everyone will be on the internet by 2030. That's incredibly exciting. I look beyond what's happening in Europe and the US, actually, for inspiration on the future of services and the future of technology. And I think China has shows the most exciting potential of how life might change, purely because of the scale and the speed at which things happen. We get excited about Facebook, we get excited about Google and what they're doing, but if you look at Wexin and the social network that's been created in China, connecting more than 1 billion consumers, as large as Facebook, larger than Facebook. It's integrated mobile payment. It's integrated so many different things that we're only just starting to think about in the West. So that's a huge source of inspiration and innovation for me. I divide people who work in tech and work in the media into two. Those that have read this book called The Clue Train Manifesto that was written in 1999, and those that haven't. If you haven't read it, it's a 16-year-old book. It's as relevant today as it was in the day when it was first published. 4 guys suggested what would happen when this beautiful thing called the internet connected people around the world, but also connected organizations to people. And it predicted incredibly accurately what would happen in the relationship between organizations and their publics, the people that work with them. And I really encourage you to look at it. It made a couple of it's 96 theses in this book that are each explained. And it the main interesting thing that I think we're seeing played out right now during this current stage of the generation of the internet is this issue of automation, that we're applying industrial techniques to the internet, and it's failing. It's failing with in a breakdown of human communication. Automation has its place for helping understand things at scale, but you can't automate a human relationship. And I think that's where a lot of pain is happening for organizations in this blue space. Maslow sorted this out in the 1940s. We shouldn't be surprised. We try and reinvent stuff so often, but Maslow 70 years ago cracked this, that humans are most motivated by self-actualization, and that's the space that brands should aspire to connect with us and form a relationship. They are not inspired by organizations that post Facebook posts of people doing star jumps on a Friday saying, "How do you feel?" There's a beautiful network called the Corporate Advertising Network on Facebook that rips the piss out of that sort of stuff. The condescending brand page, I'd urge you to look it up. And whenever I see something like that, I wrote a book called Brand Vandals, and I spent a period of time when I saw content like that on the internet saying, how do I feel? I feel really fed up and miserable and pissed off. And guess what? The brands never responded to me. They never came back. Here's the opportunity. Whenever you create a form of media or a brand connects on to the internet, it provides an opportunity. It provides a way of a human being connecting with it. And much like this sign, people quickly discover these new forms of media, these new connections. They want to talk. And if the brand isn't ready for that, it creates a huge backlash, in reputation. And that's something that I'm spending most of my time at the moment figuring out. How do we improve that area of interaction and improve the relationship between an organization and its public? We get very excited about things like this when we talk about innovation. The white heat of technology. Gartner publishes this hype cycle every year of red-hot technology. But we forget that technology for technology's sake is absolutely useless. Human beings need to adopt this stuff, and they need to adapt it to their behaviors. And until they do that, all this stuff is nonsense. It's just hype, literally. So I've got a bunch of people who run a network around the world for Ketchum of 600 practitioners, and each year we publish this piece of work looking at how media is changing, how the relationship between organizations and their publics, people are changing. And we publish this almanac of the types of things we see emerging for the year ahead. I'm going to take you through 3 or 4 things that we picked out for 2016 around influencers, around different forms of branded media, around communities. But then I'm going to show you some things that we're looking at right now that are white heat technology, but I do think show huge potential for improving that relationship on the internet between organizations and their publics. So the first thing I want to talk about is influencers. As media has pivoted from journalists writing in trusted forms of media and being the gatekeepers to news and information, anyone on the internet now can publish anything. So you get these weird situations like Barbie, who has an Instagram account, becoming a brand ambassador for different organizations, and different organizations trying to pitch Martell to be included on Barbie's Instagram feed because they want to appeal to the same demographic. You get people like Kim Kardashian charging $100,000 for a single post on Facebook or Instagram because people want to engage with their audience, and the whole thing is a bloody mess. We're trying to make sense of it from a planning point of view, whether you treat influencers as media or you treat them as in the same way that you regard a journalist, as whether you treat them through paid and earned, whether you treat them and work with them as content creators or media. And so that's a huge area of space. It's also a huge area of excitement and innovation. And this is a project we did with Google in Russia, where We raised the profile of Google's services by working with a whole load of influential scholars in the market to promote Google's service. Next thing I want to talk about is branded forms of media. So just as we used to rely on traditional media, brands have realized they can create their own forms of media. And just in the way we used to work through the media as an intermediary, we can create direct relationships now with people. And this is a piece of work we do with Oracle. One of the things, piece of branded content we produce for them, one of the things we're thinking about is how you can get people to engage more and have a more immersive relationship with them through different forms of content. So this is a platform called Turtle, which is a UK startup. Very exciting piece of technology that's really thought hard. It's applied, the 400 years of learnings we've had from print media and applied it to how people might navigate branded forms of media. So instead of the top-down web page, you're presented with an image just as you would in a magazine, with a stand first and a stand out. If you're interested in it, just as you would with a normal magazine, you flip over and you're taken into a much more immersive environment. And for us, it's showing huge potential for creating these branded forms of media and engaging with a community, with people around a product or service. So that's new forms of media, different ways of presenting information. It's quite exciting. The next evolution of media is branded communities. This isn't our work, but it's really, really exciting. I'm a Lego geek, and I love the work that Lego does in innovating its own forms of media and building communities around almost every area of its brand. This is a branded community that it's created to help with research and development. So me and my son design Lego products. We take pictures with them with the iPhone. We post them up to this community. People vote on them, whether they think they're hot or not, get a bit of gamification from the community. And once a month, Lego picks half a dozen of these that go into product development. Isn't that incredible? It's getting the community to do its research and development for it. It's hugely, hugely exciting. Lots of organizations are trying to do that and having this genuinely open and transparent relationship with their publics. And when they do that, they get huge value, and that's hugely exciting. I've shown this slide because for us within our business, communities are a huge form of innovation. We've been a very early user of Facebook's Facebook at Work product. This is basically a 10-year-old product that Facebook has been using internally to build its business, that it's now made into a product, and we've been beta testing. You get all the benefits and the behaviors that you get with regular Facebook, personally, but in a work environment, privately enclosed within the firewall. And we tried things like Yammer. Yammer, it's hard to get more than 10% of an organization engaged. Here, we've well over 60% of the business on this community, talking day in, day out about projects. Slack, things like Slack work really well if you've got a small community who's very popular in the startup space before that, but if you've got more than 30 or 40 people on it, it gets so noisy. Here, we've got groups. We're working on for almost every aspect of the business. Groups that come together around a project or around an initiative and fall away. Groups like the engagement network that I run that are steady and static and hugely exciting. So Facebook for Work is something I'm taking a huge bet on because I think it's, as they turn it into a commercial product, I think it's a hugely exciting platform for innovation. New forms of media, videos, hugely exciting. Much of the internet now, because of high-speed internet, is driven by video content. There's a load of hype around augmented reality and virtual reality. Actually, life is pretty good as it is without needing to augment it or make it virtually. So you've got to think hard about the use cases in this case, and that's my top tip there. This is an example of a piece of content we did for learning and development for medics. For teaching, creating an environment that you wouldn't be able to simulate really very easily in a regular hospital and using that as a means of helping teach. It's an exciting opportunity, but it is case-driven, opportunity-driven. I'm going to finish with 3 or 4 different things looking to the future. Why technology that I think could potentially be exciting. First one is a project that was announced by Facebook at F8 in April, where it announced this messenger bot service. Facebook's taken a massive bet on this, much as Google did with Google Now, trying to automate the relationship between human beings and their publics. Now, that's dangerous. I've already said that's dangerous. But if you apply it to an informational basis, as KLM is doing here with boarding passes, and when people want data-driven information, timetabling information, it seems to show potential and make sense. So for information stuff, maybe bots will work. Voice technology, voice recognition, is a technology that's been as old as almost as me, so at least 20 years old. As old as my career, maybe I should say. We're making huge strides at the moment because it's getting close to 95, 98% accuracy. So even me with a vaguely Geordie accent speaking to Siri can get it to understand me. And you've seen projects from Amazon, the Amazon Echo, and Google with Google Home. This announced Google's recent project, that are basically going to take a Sonos-like device and act as a voice-activated intermediary between you as a human being and the internet. When that happens, there's a layer going to be stripped out of the internet. So at the moment, we Google something and we're given 10 results back. When you do it on a voice basis and you speak to this device, Google Home or Amazon Echo, it's going to bring information back directly to you. When that happens, a layer of the internet disappears, and products like this will start making decisions for you based on your customer history, what you've done, your behaviors. And so that's something we're going to have to think about in the next 5 to 10 years as these products become mainstream. They're very early at the moment, but they're showing huge promise. And then there's loads of hype about the Internet of Things, connected devices. My oil tank up in Northumberland is connected to the internet. When it gets low on oil, an oil truck is summoned to come and deliver it to it. Amazon's rolled out a product this week in the UK, actually last week in the UK, very similar to that, where when you run out of condoms, you can press a button and presumably, not immediately, but just in time, they will be delivered to you. But, look at all the consumer brands that are betting on this as a potential future. This idea that you have a direct relationship with the brand and Amazon will fulfill for you when you run out of stuff, things, goods, and services. Again, that's stripping another intermediary out of the internet and creating that direct relationship. I think that's hugely exciting. So the internet's this beautiful network. There's around 3.6 billion people connected to it at the moment. It's an area of huge innovation. I think innovation happens when these 3 areas coalesce, when you have data, a platform, and a product and service. Innovation is not about a product or service. It's when these 3 things come together. And if you test this, it works for Amazon, it works for Uber, it works for all the hyper-growth companies that we've seen lately. It works for Facebook, it works for Airbnb. And so this is a model that I apply in consulting situations. And I'd encourage you, as a close, to think about how you can apply that model to your business in improving the relationship between how you work with your customers and wider publics. Thank you very much.